The afternoon sun beat down on Forest Hill Stadium in Queens, New York. August 28, 1965. 10,000 people packed into seats waiting to see Bob Dylan. But this wasn't the folk hero with the acoustic guitar. This was something new. Dylan had gone electric 3 weeks earlier at Newport, and half the folk world had declared him a traitor. In the fifth row sat Michael Brennan, 40 years old. He'd driven 6 hours from Pittsburgh, hadn't slept, could barely eat. Because Michael was planning his suicide for that night. He'd written the note, said his goodbyes without people knowing, settled his affairs. After this concert, after seeing Dylan one last time, he'd drive to a bridge and end it. Depression had swallowed him over 3 years. His wife left, taking their 2 young sons. He lost his tenured position teaching English literature after a breakdown in front of colleagues. His savings were gone. At 40, he felt like a failure who'd wasted half his life. The successful career he'd built through his 30s, publications, respect, a home, had collapsed. And starting over at 40 felt impossible. But before he did it, he needed to see Dylan. Because Dylan's music was the only thing that made Michael feel less alone. Blowin' in the Wind, The Times They Are A-Changin'. Those songs understood pain. The announcements came. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Dylan. Dylan walked on stage in dark sunglasses and leather jacket. Behind him, a full electric band. The folk purists immediately started booing. Michael didn't care about the electricity. He just needed to hear Dylan's voice one more time. Dylan didn't acknowledge the boos. He counted off and launched into Maggie's Farm, loud and aggressive. Half the crowd cheered, half booed. Michael Brennan just sat there, tears running down his face. He couldn't explain why he was crying. Maybe the heat, maybe exhaustion, maybe because in 24 hours he'd planned to be dead, and at 40 years old, this felt like the end of everything. Dylan moved through his set. Every song drew applause and anger. People walked out. People threw things. But Dylan kept playing. Michael watched through tears, thinking about the bridge, about his sons who'd stopped calling, about the colleague who'd found him crying in his office, about being 40 and broken. Then Dylan stopped between songs and did something he almost never did. He talked to the audience. Music isn't about making you comfortable, Dylan said, his voice defiant. It's about making you feel something real. And if you're angry right now, at least you're feeling something. Michael stopped crying for a moment. That line hit him differently. At least you're feeling something. Michael had spent 3 years feeling nothing, just emptiness. Depression had replaced everything with a void so complete that suicide seemed like the only logical solution. But Dylan was right. Even pain was better than nothing. Dylan was mid-set when he saw Michael. While everyone was on their feet, cheering or booing, Michael sat perfectly still, tears streaming, not crying emotionally, crying the way middle-aged men cry when they've given up. Dylan had seen that look before, in his mirror during dark moments, the look of someone who'd stopped fighting. Dylan finished like a rolling stone, but instead of continuing, he set down his guitar and walked to the stage edge. The band looked confused. Dylan shielded his eyes and looked at Michael. "Hey, you in the fifth row, blue shirt." 10,000 people turned to look. "Yeah, you," Dylan said. "You okay?" Michael couldn't speak. He shook his head. The crowd went silent. "What's your name?" Dylan asked. "Michael," he whispered. "Michael," Dylan repeated. "Why are you crying?" 10,000 people waited. Michael thought about lying, but Dylan's direct gaze made it impossible. "Because I'm 40 years old," Michael said louder now, "and I don't know how to keep going." Absolute silence. 10,000 people holding their breath. The band frozen. Dylan stood at the edge for 10 seconds. Then he did something nobody expected. "Come up here," Dylan said. "What?" "Come up here. On stage. Right now." Michael didn't move. This couldn't be real. "Michael," Dylan said firmly but gently, "get up here." People pushed Michael toward the aisle. "Go," someone said. "He's waiting." Michael walked down the aisle on shaking legs. A 40-year-old professor who'd lost everything, now climbing onto Bob Dylan's stage in front of 10,000 people. Dylan walked over close enough that only Michael could hear. "You said you're 40 and don't know how to keep going," Dylan said quietly. "Brother, I'm 24. half your age, and I feel that way most days. Let me show you something." Then Dylan turned to the band. "Get him a guitar." A roadie brought an acoustic. Michael took it, hands shaking. "Do you know Blowin' in the Wind?" Dylan asked. Michael nodded. He'd taught this song in his literature classes, analyzed its poetry, never imagined playing it with Dylan. "Good, we're playing it together, right now, you and me." Dylan faced the audience. "This is Michael. He's 40 years old and going through something. Age doesn't matter. Pain is pain. Right now, he and I are going to play a song. Everyone's going to listen. No booing, no walking out, just listening. Understood?" The crowd applauded. Dylan counted off and they began playing "Blowin' in the Wind." First verse, Michael's hands shook badly. His voice cracked, but Dylan stayed beside him, voice carrying the melody when Michael's failed. By the second verse, something shifted. Muscle memory from years of teaching kicked in. Michael's hands steadied. His professor's voice, trained from lecturing, grew stronger. Dylan smiled. "There you go, that's it." For 3 minutes, Michael Brennan forgot he was 40 and failing, forgot the divorce papers, forgot his son's silence, forgot the empty apartment in Pittsburgh. He just played. When the song ended, the stadium erupted. Real, thunderous, standing ovation applause. Michael stood there, a middle-aged man crying in front of 10,000 strangers. Different tears. Dylan put his hand on Michael's shoulder. "You did good. Why did you do this? I'm nobody. You're 40, I'm 24. You think you failed because you're starting over at 40. I'm terrified I'll fail before I'm 30. Age doesn't make pain less real." "What if it's not enough?" "It won't be enough today," Dylan said. "But tomorrow you'll remember this. That'll buy you another day. That's how it works, day by day." After the concert, Dylan's road manager brought Michael backstage. Dylan was sitting in a folding chair, exhausted. He stood when he saw Michael. "You didn't leave." "I didn't know if I should." "Sit. Talk to me." They sat in the cramped dressing room. "How did you know?" Michael asked. "About me. I've seen that look. The 'I'm too old to start over' look. My dad had it when his business failed. He was 45. Thought life was over. It wasn't. After your concert, I was going to drive to a bridge." "What bridge?" "Does it matter?" "Yes, because tomorrow I want you to drive past it. Stop. Look at it. Remember you didn't jump today. Remember a 24-year-old kid told you 40 isn't over. Then drive away." "What if that's not enough?" Dylan wrote something on paper. "My manager's number. Call if things get bad. Tell them you played guitar with me. They'll put you through." "You'd really talk to me?" "You're 40. You have perspective I don't. Maybe I need to hear from you as much as you need to hear from me." Michael drove home to Pittsburgh at 2 a.m. He was supposed to die. Instead, he had Dylan's number and the memory of 10,000 people applauding a 40-year-old failure. By dawn, he'd made a decision. He would see a doctor. The first week was brutal. Medication made him nauseous. He couldn't eat. Still thought about the bridge. But every time, he'd remember Dylan's words. 40 isn't over. On the 5th day, Michael drove to the bridge, looked at it, and drove away. That night, he called Dylan's number. "Albert Grossman Management. I played guitar with Bob Dylan at Forest Hills. He told me to call if things got bad." 2 minutes later, "Michael, you still here?" "Barely." "But you are, that counts. Talk to me." They talked for 20 minutes. At the end, "Call again if you need to." By 6 months, Michael wasn't healed. Depression doesn't work that way. But he was alive. He got a teaching job at a community college. Not prestigious like his old tenured position at the university. Not the kind of job that came with respect and recognition. But something. Started a support group. Connected with other people struggling. Slowly, piece by piece, rebuilt. The medication helped. The therapy helped. But some mornings, Michael still woke up thinking about that bridge. The difference now? He'd pick up his guitar, play "Blowin' in the Wind." Remember 10,000 people applauding. Remember Dylan's hand on his shoulder. Remember that a 24-year-old kid believed a 40-year-old failure was worth saving. In February 1966, Michael came home from teaching to find a letter in his mailbox. The return address said Woodstock, New York. His hands shook as he opened it. Michael, heard from my manager, you're doing better. That's good. Real good. I'm playing Pittsburgh next month, March 15th. Carnegie Hall. 2 tickets enclosed. Bring someone you trust, someone who knows the story. After the show, tell security you're Michael from Forest Hills. They'll bring you back. I want to see how you're doing. Face to face. Keep going. Bob Michael read the letter 3 times. Dylan hadn't forgotten him. 6 months later, in the middle of touring, with 1,000 things demanding his attention, Bob Dylan remembered a 40-year-old professor from Pittsburgh. Michael brought his colleague Tom to the concert. Tom was the one who'd found Michael crying in his office a year ago. The one who'd driven him to the hospital when things got really bad. The one who kept checking on him, even when Michael pushed everyone away. On the drive to Pittsburgh, Michael told Tom the whole Forest Hills story. Tom listened in silence. When Michael finished, Tom said, "I knew something happened that night. You came back different. I just didn't know what." After Dylan's set, Michael told security, "I'm Michael from Forest Hills." The guard's eyes widened. "Wait here." 2 minutes later, Dylan walked out, not to his dressing room, right there in the hallway. Dylan saw Michael and broke away from his road manager. "You came." "I came." Dylan looked at him for a long moment, really looked at him. "You look better," Dylan said. Not as a pleasantry, as an observation. "I am better," Michael said. "Not perfect. Some days are still hard, but better. And I'm 41 now. You were right. 40 wasn't over." Dylan smiled. Not the cool, detached smile he showed photographers. A real smile. "You still got my number?" "I've got it. Called it twice since August." "Yeah? What did we talk about?" "Once in October when I almost didn't go to my doctor's appointment. Once in December when my ex-wife got remarried and I felt like a failure all over again. Each time you talked me through it." Dylan nodded. "Good. Keep that number." Dylan looked at Tom. "You his friend?" "I try to be." "Keep being his friend. He's going to need you. Depression doesn't go away. It just gets manageable. Both of you, take care of each other. That's how we survive this. We take care of each other." By 1985, Michael was 60, remarried, 2 grown sons who'd reconnected with him, grandchildren, still teaching. Every August 28th, he'd play Blowin' in the Wind and Remember. That summer, Michael started One More Day, a suicide prevention program for people over 40, because middle-age depression was different. People thought you were supposed to have it figured out by 40. The program grew. Michael started speaking. He always told the Forest Hills story. In 1987, Rolling Stone wrote, "The fan Bob Dylan saved." Dylan called, "Want to play Farm Aid?" Michael performed at Farm Aid 1987, age 62, with Dylan beside him. And the applause felt like coming home. In 2004, Bob Dylan sat down with Ed Bradley for 60 minutes. Dylan was 63 years old, grayer, weathered, but still that same defiant spirit. Bradley asked about the fame, the Nobel rumors, the legacy. Then, in a career full of achievements, what moment are you most proud of? Dylan was quiet for a long time. Forest Hills, 1965. I pulled a 40-year-old man from the crowd who was planning suicide. We played a song together. He's 79 now. Runs a suicide prevention program. Helped save over 1,000 people. That matters more than any album I ever made. Bradley stared. You're serious. Dead serious. If my entire career accomplished nothing except keeping one man alive long enough for him to save 1,000 others, that's enough. Michael watched from Pittsburgh, 79 years old, Sarah beside him, 4 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild on the way. One More Day had chapters in 47 states, over 1,000 lives saved, and Bob Dylan was calling that his proudest moment. Sarah squeezed his hand. Michael was crying, 39 years later, still crying at Dylan's voice. The next day, Dylan called. "You saw it. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. People need to know that art isn't just about making beautiful things. It's about saving each other. You were 24 when you saved a 40-year-old stranger. And you were 40 when you decided to live. We saved each other, Michael. You needed me that day, but I needed you too." Michael Brennan died on October 12, 2019, at 94 years old. By then, One More Day had expanded to over 200 colleges, at least 1,500 lives saved directly. But those 1,500 people had children, grandchildren. The real number? Incalculable. The funeral was on October 19th. Over 400 people attended. They played Blowin' in the Wind. Acoustic. Simple. Just like 1965. Michael's grandson Thomas spoke. "My grandfather saved my life. Not metaphorically, literally. If Bob Dylan hadn't stopped that concert in 1965, I wouldn't exist. None of us would. Grandpa always said Dylan taught him that 40 isn't over. It's just the beginning of the second half. He lived that truth for 54 years he wasn't supposed to have." Dylan sent white roses. The card said, "He taught me that wisdom comes from surviving, not from never falling. Thank you for 54 years of friendship, Bob." Because saving someone's life goes both ways. Michael needed Dylan that day, but Dylan needed Michael too. Needed to see that music wasn't just about fame or records. It was about connection, about seeing pain and refusing to look away. They saved each other that August afternoon in 1965, and the ripples still spread today. In every person over 40 who thought it was too late, in every musician who remembers that fame means nothing if you don't use it to help people. Sometimes the wind blows you toward exactly who needs you most. And for 3 minutes, you play a song together. And it changes everything. Not just for that moment, but for everyone who comes after. For generations who needed to hear, it's never too late. As long as you're breathing, there's time for one more day. If this story moved you, subscribe. Like this video if you believe in reaching out to people in pain. Comment, have you been saved by unexpected kindness or saved someone else? Let's talk about the moments that remind us why we're here.